Alright, Masters, this is Some-Belgian-prepper, and today I'm going to talk about 15 survival uses for an analog wristwatch. But before we do that, if you're interested in detective stories, in the link in the description will be my first book called Bloody Crosses. It's in Dutch. If you're interested, it will be down in the description. So, um, yeah, wristwatch. How can these be useful in survival situation, and how can it to be useful for 15 different survival uses? I'm going to talk about them today. Well, and I'm talking about an analog watch, like a mechanical watch. Why? Because these days these electronical watches, you can do some survival things with them, but in my opinions, one of those mechanical watches are much better to use. Why? First of all, mechanical watches are using batteries, and I hate batteries because I always have bad luck with them. And with this, it's just like every now and then you have to windle up the watch to make it running. So yeah, that's one thing, and it will be more valuable during a survival situation when there is perhaps there is some EMP or batteries are not for available, or yeah, because you do cannot usually cannot charge this up. And yeah, it's for the reasons that I'm going to tell you within a minute. So yeah, if you're going on a survival hike, uh, it's always handy to know the time. Um, and we're going to do the first thing. The first thing you can do with an analog watch like this is as a compass. There are several ways you can use this as a compass. The first way is um, look with your 12 o'clock in the direction of the sun, and right between the sun, the 12 o'clock, and the small why is that, how do you say this, the small tr- thing that the small how do you say this, the small thing that says what hour it is. Between those, that's where the north is. So that's a way when how to look the north as a compass with your wristwatch. There is another way you can do this. Actually, there are actually two ways you can do this. The other way would be if you take one of those uh, how do you call this, devices where you would look at the minutes. Take them out, uh, rub them on your clothing, one half, put it on a leaf, put it on the water, and it will turn in the direction of the north. And that way you can also use it as a compass on an improvised way. I did this in a previous video on how to navigate. I would advise to watch that video. Another thing is, if you got one of these watches, yet again, one of those dials, the dial, that's the word I'm looking for, you get it up and it works like a sundial. So if you know where to point it in your longitude, in your port where you're currently at, you can use it as a sundial to know where you are. So that's another handy thing you can do. Another thing is you can use it to make fire. The ways you can make fire, if it's an electric battery, you can use it like ways to make electricity, make a fire with a battery. Connect the minus and the plus pole. You can pierce through it so it will make contact, the lithium can make contact with oxygen, and it will start to give a chemical reaction that will give heat. And another thing is pour some water on top of it, and it can also create some small charge overcharging, and that can be used to get some sparks, to get some fire. But the main way is to take the glass out of the watch and use it as yeah, as a glass to pinpoint the sun onto a spot and make a fire that way. Yeah, that's those were the ways to make a fire. Another thing is you can sharpen a knife with it. If you did this, not a wristwatch that is made out of leather, but if you have a wristband made out of leather, you can use it to after you sharpen your knife on a stone or with sand, you can make it even sharpen even finer, like one of those razor blade, like those things when you have a razor, that leather strap they use. The same thing can be used with a leather strap from your wristband. So you can sharpen a knife very sharp with that. Another thing is a signal mirror. I don't know if you can see it, but you can use the lens, or perhaps the if you the backs if you have a metal backside or a glass front sight. You can use those both to reflect light and use it to signal help from a rescue party. So if you perhaps can see, did this in just in the light of my lamp. So imagine when it's the sun, and it can be seen after on a long distance. So that way you can signal for help. Another way is a knife, as a knife or a cutting tool. If you don't have a knife or a cutting tool, there are several ways to use this. The metal parts you can and open it, take them out, sharpen on a rock, and that way you have a small cutting tool to cut, to perhaps to cut some meat or something else. And another way is to use the glass, break the glass into shards, and that shard you can use to cut things too. So if you're on an if you are floating on an island after your plane crashed in the ocean, it's a way to, yeah, to make a cutting tool. We are now at number 6, and that is using for fishing. There are two ways you can use a wristwatch for fishing, and the first one is use the small metal parts as a metal spinner. I think it's a spinner. It's called the thing that you put on a fishing line that it will start to reflect light and start to spin, and that will attract a fish because they think it's some sort of insect or prey that you can hang about the hook, and that way it will catch it, or at least get its attention towards the bait on your hook of your fishing. Another thing is you can use the dials to you can turn them into, or the metal parts you can turn them into improvised fishing hooks, so that's also very handy for during the fishing. Number 7, calculate distance. Yeah, it could be handy if you're on your path and you realize I went the wrong way, or in another, or you found help, but a wounded person of your group must have stayed behind, or you split up and you come back later on to find your way. That way you can say, oh, I've been walking average that speed. I've been walking this long, so they're this much distance away from me, and that could be handy for rescue and search parties to track back if you're lost and all that sort of stuff. That would be handy in a survival situation. Could always happening. Right. Number 8 is cordage. Like I said, you can use the metal. You can use the strap. Whether the it does not matter what kind of material they're made of. Even this material, whether it's leather, cordage, or you can use paracord to change your wristband. Those all could be used as cordage to put something together. If you're building a shelter and you have a big branch that needs something stronger to hold together, you can use your wristwatch around it and bind it together to get a more stronger connection in your improvised shelter. Right. 9 is bargaining and collateral. What do I mean by this? There are certain survival situations where you need help from the locals or from somebody else, and yeah, if you cannot give something back, they will be less likely to help you. Or yeah, so you can say it happened a lot, especially in rural areas or areas where technology or things are more expensive or harder to get, like a watch like this is for, let's say, if you are in a very rural area and there is a farmer, they will find this more uh, mechanical watch will be more valuable than a sport watch with a battery. So you can, in in exchange for some food, help, or for some help, you can give this to the person to as a way to bargaining for something, or you can use it to bribe somebody if you're in a in sort of prison or hostile situation where you need to get out, and sometimes you can bribe a person with your watch. It happened a lot in the past. I would uh, surely look up on how some prisoners in concentration camps or some prisoner camps or whatever camp they were present in, they could use the watch to get more survival chances with bargaining or something. Or you can use it as collateral. If you say, when I get back, I will pay you back later on, but if you do not have something, you will only have empty words. So you can give your watch in collateral to pursue them more to help you. Right. Number 10. Yeah, just to know what hour when the sun is. If you know when the sun is going down, you can calculate. I need to have this much time till the sun is fully down. And yeah, it's very hard to build a shelter when or you set up your camp when the sun is down. So you have to do it in time in front to do it. So if you have a watch, it's easy. But in my opinion, if you see the horizon, but in some instances you do not see the horizon. So when you're in a mountainous area, when you're in a forest area, and you need to know when it's getting dark, you cannot see the horizon. What I would do is I use my fingers and beneath the sight of the sun, and the amount of fingers I see till the horizon, and that way you can calculate with each finger is 50 minutes how much time you have till the sun is fully down. But like I said, in a forest area or a mountainous area, you cannot always see this, or when you're in a building. So yeah, that could be a little bit hard to detect. So with a watch, you know when to set up shelter in front of time before it gets dark. All right, 11, sewing needle. Um, these small dials, if you can see, these are long. These are usually long with a point and a small, very small hole that connect them with the center of the watch. And that's actually, if you have a soft material, you can use it to sew to put some thread through the hole and use the point of the dial to sew. So yeah, in a survival situation, then you have at least two with a small and a big dial. You have two needles that you can potentially use for sewing soft materials together, uh, whether it's clothing, but I would not say leather because usually these are too weak for those. All right, 12 tourniquet. I would say an improvised tourniquet, especially when you this with this it's not really possible because this is a little bit too sturdy material to twist. But if you have something like paracord or a leather strap, you can use it as an improvised tourniquet. If you're bleeding on your arm or your leg, put the watch around it. You can usually you have much more material left to because your nobody's wrist is this big, so you can put it on this bigger stance, close it, put it around the arm or the leg, put a pen or a branch between it and turn, and that way perhaps you can stop the bleeding till you can get professional medical help or treat the wound in with more time than when you're bleeding out. So this could be used as an improvised tourniquet, but more with a paracord or a leather strap. Right, 13. It could be used as a comfort or inspirational item. What do I mean by that? If you ever saw that movie Pulp Fiction, you see that when the friend of the father of the boxer guy, let's call him Bruce Willis, says, I've hidden this watch during the Vietnam War when I was taken prisoner with your dad, and I hid this watch in my ass for 5 years." And that watch was so important for the character of Bruce Willis that he even went back to the house even though he knew that gangsters would be in his house. So a watch could be a very important inspirational item if it has some emotional value when you got it from your father or your parent or from your loved one or as a gift from your child or somebody you got it from someone you love. And in a survival situation that could be a mental connection and give you the will to survive because it will remind you I need to survive for to see my loved one back again. So as an inspirational and comforting item, I would really advise to ask your loved one to give you a watch. Right. Next thing, number 14, is to leave behind a trace for rescue parties and crews. There are two ways you can do this. One is you can use the metal to scrape messages in the trees, like arrows or directions, or in the bark you can carve some words like Kruanok. If you know your history, you will know what I mean by Kruanok. Kruatok, Kruanok. Oh, never mind. It was just a stupid attempt to a joke. Kruanok. Yeah, I think it's Kruanok. And yeah, that way the search party can find a tree with bark with directions, with information about your situation or where you're heading, and that will help you if they pass they cross a path where you have been. So that could be very, very handy to find you in a search and rescue party. Another thing you can do is take the wrist, and you can tie it around a branch or a tree on a very visible place. And because it can reflect some light, it will be very visible for trained search and rescue parties. Another thing, and this is more for a watch with a crystal in it, number 15. I've read about a person who took the crystal from his watch, rolled up a leaf, put a crystal between it, and they used it as a small telescope. And that way, you and with a telescope, you can see further away to find paths, or to spot danger, or to spot anything that you need to for your survival a little bit more better, and that on an improvised way. So yeah, those are all things. Those are 15 things you can do with a wristwatch, and yeah, I would say a wristwatch is always handy, and it will, especially when you're in a, if you're going hiking, camping, survival situation, whatever, and you want to know what time it is, you don't have to use batteries to look, oh, it's that much time. Use a mechanical watch like this that you just have to spring up from time to time. So yeah, so if you have any other survival uses for a wristwatch like this, please let me know in the comments. I'm always eager to learn, and I hope this will help you a little bit, or learn yourself to do more with less. This is actually something that I always say in my videos: is do more with less. If you have an item, does not matter what item, it could be the most stupid item in the world. Try to look at that item and see, what can I do with it? Use your imagination and fantasy to think of scenarios where this, what you would do, what you can do with, or what you can you improvise with it. So yeah, that is actually the last message I can give you in this specific video. So I would say thank you for watching, like, subscribe, all the good stuff, and see you in the next video. Cheers.